First of all, thank you everyone for joining us. I know it has been a full packed week. Harry, meeting you in the lobby, it was a little jarring at first because I've only heard your voice through my AirPods.
No, it's because I look young in these pictures, and then you meet me and you're like, Jesus, you're older and bigger than I thought you'd be. Everyone meets me like, I thought you were 12. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I was taken 10 years ago. But thank you. It's lovely to meet you too, man.
It's great to have you here. And I want to start, I think, for so many in the audience of the investors, we was talking with them before the session, what you do needs no introduction. But I want to start with
an introduction.
An introduction, essentially, particularly an introduction relevant to an audience of healthcare entrepreneurs, investors, corporate strategic acquirers, and partners. You shared a lot about your connection to healthcare, to chronic diseases, et cetera, and how it shaped you in the work you do today with your family. And I'd love to give you the opportunity here to let everyone know about that connection and how it shapes the work you do at 20VC.
Yeah, sure. So, I saw venture capital for the first time when I was 13 years old. I saw The Social Network, and there's a scene where Peter Thiel invests in Facebook with Clarion Capital, his hedge fund. And I was 13, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. This is two of my big loves, finance and technology coming together. And so I was a massive nerd on venture when I was in my teenage years. It's why I had no friends and no girlfriends when I was in high school. Probably many other reasons too, to be fair. And then when I was 18, I think great companies are founded on the back of insight developments, a way that an entrepreneur sees the world that is different to the way everyone else sees the world. And I thought that the future of venture would be transparent. It would not be an old boys club anymore. And I thought they would be commoditized. I thought you would need to bring products to the table to win the right to invest in the best entrepreneurs. And so I started 20VC from my bedroom. I had no money and I didn't know one single VC. So slight challenge in that starting point. And then about a year and a half in, my mother said, my MS is getting worse. My mother's had multiple sclerosis and has done since I was kind of 13. My multiple sclerosis is getting worse, and I'm going to, be in a wheelchair in like 5 years' time with the latest results that she had. And the medication is just way too expensive, and there's all these different pills and injections and everything that I need at the time. So it's going to be like $700,000. So there's like no way that I can do it. And I was like, well, don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. And I was like 19 and had no money, and had absolutely no fucking idea how. Am I allowed to swear?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No idea how I'd pay for it. But with incredible gusto and confidence, I proceeded up to my bedroom, plotted out the 5 most competitive software categories and the 5 most well-funded companies within them. So 25 companies. And I got the cold emails or the emails for the CEOs of those companies, Mark Benioff, Dharmesh, HubSpot, you name it. And I cold emailed them, and I realized that $100,000 was the price where they needed procurement. A la poubelle, we hate procurement. So 95 was the price. And I would email them and say, oh, Mark, I love Salesforce, but HubSpot want to sponsor the show. So, we'd love to work with you. And for $95,000, baby, it's yours. And 22 out of 25 came back within 3 days. And then in a weekend, we made about $2 million.
Wow.
Which was nice.
It's pretty good return time horizon, I'd say.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I had no idea that you could actually make money from podcasts before that moment. But that was like the sole reason why we built a business, was because I needed to pay for my mother's MS medication. And that's been really, really impactful.
Yeah. And now today, you recently announced a new fundraise for what?
Do you want to hear something nuts? Sorry, we're never going to have any control over me in this. Sorry. My mother used to have a relapse once every 3 weeks of her MS. She has relapsing remitting MS. It's not bad, but it's not good. She does suffer pretty from it, or she did. And when she was drinking, she used to have a relapse once a month. A week she'd be out, properly in bed, not good. She stops drinking, has a relapse every 18 months. What the fuck? All of the doctors that we went to, diet doesn't really make a difference. There was maybe do this, have a higher fat here. No one fucking said stop drinking. Her life changed insanely.
It is funny to think about all the technologies we're building here to treat chronic diseases, to treat things that need surgical intervention, really, really heady problems, yet kind of the connection between deep med tech like that and just health and wellness in general seems to kind of be very fragmented. You did an episode with the founder of the David Protein Bar, and a lot of the things you were asking around, is it good to be consuming all this protein? Is it, is that better for you?
It's not. It's definitely not, by the way. Like, I had this old girlfriend who would always tell me that, like, protein bars would, like, kill me. And I didn't believe her. And then actually, like, she was right. Synthetic protein, it just is so bad for your gut. Makes you fart like a trooper, sorry. It just don't do it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Takeaway.
Well, I think my biceps might be a little smaller than yours, so I might be telling you not to use them instead of me. But regardless, it is incredible to think about, how your experience with healthcare through your mother as, really kind of shaped as a seminal point in your life. And I think another thing that you talk a lot about, kind of totally shifting gears away from just health, being here in London, we have a lot of European-based startups that are here at this summit raising capital. We have U.S. startups that are coming overseas, U.S. and European investors. You've been extremely vocal through your podcast about the opportunity here in Europe to build generational companies. And with this new fund, you did something about it with Project Europe. I know when that came out, it was almost the exact day, I think, that we announced the session here at LSI Europe. So a lot of people had asked me to kind of ask you to explain what Project Europe is, what's the goal, how are you building it, and where do you see it going?
The fundamental problem is we tell young people that if you want to build great companies, you have to move to Silicon Valley, which is absolute bullshit. They will continue to do so if we continue to tell them that that's what they need to do. And so Project Europe is very simple. It's about funding 16, I don't know if we can quite get away with below that, 16 to 25-year-olds, funding them with the right amount of money to build insanely ambitious projects. We have one project in Greece that is robotics for injection delivery. We have incredible cybersecurity projects, very ambitious projects where there are 18-year-olds with no data points to suggest they will be successful. No venture capitalist will fund this. And we will fund them as early as humanly possible and encourage them to build businesses that they wouldn't have otherwise built.
Yeah.
Like, every company needs like an unwavering North Star. Our unwavering North Star is in 10 years, there will be 10,000 person companies that came from Project Europe.
Wow. And when you say we, I know you have an incredible network behind you. In addition, you have Kitty, you have a whole network of entrepreneurs.
The fund is funded by 200 of the best entrepreneurs. People forget when raising money to utilize your cap table. One, like a sports team, everyone has an individual role to play and you draw on them for that individual role, but also to weaponize your cap table. Turn your cap table into a strategic advantage that you can use to win. And we thought here, respectfully, it's like $10 million. We can fund it ourselves. We could fund it from anyone. But how do we turn it into a weapon? We get 200 of the best founders in Europe to be our LPs, each with 20K, 25K checks, and make sure that we have that weapon at our disposal.
That sounds a lot like some of the things we've heard from entrepreneurs this week that have had success using that cap table strategically. They think a lot about in healthcare, do they want some of these corporate acquirers or health systems on their cap table as CVCs early? There's pros and cons they weigh. You not only are a founder, but have seen some of the best founders, backed a lot of the best founders. For the founders in the room here, I'm curious, and the investors that look at founders, what are some of the common traits that you see across the best founders in your portfolio that we can take into this industry as we build companies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. There's two different elements to this question. Like, what makes the best entrepreneurs? There's the mindset. And, we've invested in $12 billion companies and work very closely with them. When you look at the mindset of the best entrepreneurs, they have three core traits. The first is they have this superiority complex. They fundamentally believe that in some way they're better than other people. They don't like to admit it, but they do. I am better, I'm more talented, I'm more capable than other people, which is why I am who I am. That's what they believe. Superiority complex. At the same time, they have this kind of paradoxical inferiority complex that they are not achieving enough. They could be moving faster. They're not hitting where they should be. And it's this strange duality which they hold at the same time. And then you layer on top of that impulse control, which is the ability to suspend desires for pain and endurance and to prevent doing things that other people would otherwise fall victim to or do. So it's kind of those three, which is superiority complex, inferiority, and then the impulse control. That's kind of on the mindset side. On the characteristics or traits in one's past. I never went to university, but I think it'd be a great job to be a psychologist. Sit in my chair and I'll charge you like $500. Great job. But when you look at childhoods, they unwaveringly inform great entrepreneurs. And there's really three traits. The first trait is the best entrepreneurs always move around a lot in their childhood. They're forced to assimilate with new environments, make new friends, join new clubs, leave friendships, a core trait of leadership. The second is they are often very competitive gamers or lead clans. One of the most common signals of a highly successful software entrepreneur.
For those who are wondering what clan means outside the context of video game, can you clarify?
It's like an online community that participates in games, and they lead them, organize them, structure them. I remember Toby Lutker at Shopify, the CEO of Shopify, telling me that he derives a lot more signal from whether you led a clan than whether you went to Harvard. If anyone went to Harvard, I'm so sorry. You could have just led a clan. Saved the $150K. But at least you didn't do an MBA. But I get in trouble for that one. But that's really important. And then the third and final one is great entrepreneurs always show entrepreneurial flair early. They present signs of greatness early. No one at 25 in software, for sure, is like, I'm going to do my first ever entrepreneurial thing. Entrepreneurialism always reveals itself early in the life of an entrepreneur. And so those three things in the kind of childhood and background really make for a fantastic entrepreneur.
Does it have to be something entrepreneurial? And I think when we think entrepreneurial, we think company, making money, starting a business of that sort. Can you give me some examples of a sign of an entrepreneur in childhood?
Oh yeah, the most common one that we see given kind of the generational patterns that we invest in is I made websites for local businesses. That's the most common one that you will see. I created a gaming company, often is another one. In lieu of entrepreneurship or making money, I need exceptionalism. And so I want to see where you have outperformed compared to your benchmark. And so I love investing in athletes. They are unwaveringly disciplined. They're willing to forego short-term benefits for long-term sacrifice. That's really, really important. And so in lieu of like money-making activities, absolutely, athletes says a lot to me. This is a game of fundamentally like the work you do in private is the work you're rewarded for in public. And most of the time, people won't give a shit about you. And you have to be very willing to put up with that. We did like 2 years before we hit like 1,000 plays. It's like for a long time.
1,000 plays on your podcast.
Yeah, per show. It was a long time of no one giving a shit. Now we get 2.5 million. You have to persist through that. It's a game of who can survive the longest.
Yeah, you've talked about that idea of kind of a game of attrition in building media distribution, great product. And I think with these things you're talking about with some of these incredible founders, being an avid listener of your show, with a lot of these AI company founders, you hear those signals, and the way that you ask the questions, you kind of lead us to this interesting, rich data set of starting to compare their backgrounds and think about what they did. And I want to kind of use that to segue maybe into the topic of the moment, which is, these incredible AI companies and how they're growing. Across industries, there is so many applications, it's almost dizzying. Thinking about where we are here today in healthcare, there's...
For everyone thinking, who's this reprobate on stage? Sorry. Like also with this kind of weird tattoo. This is not a permanent tattoo, just to be clear. My mother would kill me. It shows you the state of the venture capital industry, though, which is really interesting. Like, the excess capital supply is terrifying. There is so much money chasing so few deals that we have to do everything humanely fucking possible to win the right to invest in the best founders. Yesterday, the team all got transfer tattoos just to show something different, to prove to an entrepreneur that we're willing to think differently and out of the box. That is a very interesting depiction of the state of capital markets.
I think what's so incredible is the juxtaposition between what you just said, which is 100% true in the world that we're talking about. And I think what so many of the operators here that work in a highly regulated industry like healthcare experience on a day-to-day is not a flurry of investors competing to get into their rounds? Raise your hand if you're a medtech operator that's had a flurry of investors competing to get into your round consistently. Raise your hand if you're a medtech startup that would say it's challenging to raise capital in today's environment. It's just a really interesting, it's a really interesting difference. And that's
maybe towards me, because I'm fucking questioning my life choices. You've got a 19-year-old who kind of went into OpenAI for a coffee that raises $100 million at $1 billion. I mean, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, it's crazy some of the companies you have too that are just the revenue growth. Like,
oh my God, we have like 4 companies that scale to $100 million in revenue in a year. It's nuts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. We did this business, Cognition, very early, and, it just raised at $10 billion. And it was nothing 18 months ago. Nothing to $10 billion in 18 months. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole story and journey of company development has changed in software. It's astonishing.
And so to ask maybe like the $1 million question, right? What are we doing wrong? Or what can we do differently? How can we get more of the people that are building those kinds of businesses, that have access to those kinds of funds, to care about an industry that accounts for so much of our GDP, affects all of us in so many ways? What kinds of things do you think about with respect to the future of healthcare, and what can, the people that are building in that space do maybe to kind of bridge that rift?
I think there's incentives drive outcomes. And while the incentives are so heavily skewed towards insanely steroid-driven software company acceleration, you will not see that transition occur. What you will see, though, is a lack of sustainability in those revenues. Are these companies durable? Are these ongoing 10, 20, 30-year companies? The honest answer is unwaveringly no. And any investor who says they are is bluntly propping up their own book. They are not. Some are and some aren't. The truth is, are we in an AI bubble? 100% yes. Are bubbles bad? Good question. A lot of great innovation comes from bubbles, and the funding that goes into them spawns a lot of development. So are we in a bubble? Yes. Could it be a good bubble? Yes. The question really then for me becomes, when the tide turns and we realize that we've lost a lot of money on a lot of AI hype, where does the money go from there? And how do we direct it efficiently into a meaningful category like healthcare, and not something less meaningful like degen crypto communities or Web3, where it could equally go? Again, incentives drive outcomes. And so I think the true question for the healthcare community is, how do we package the incentives to investors where they can see that upside in a similar way? We're all just fucking dopamine-driven monkeys these days. Honestly, I know it sounds like it's true. And we notice it in our content. Before we used to do really insightful, great content, sit down with the founders of Stripe and Shopify and Spotify and talk about leadership lessons and hiring. You know what people want now? A 60-second reel on like Sam Altman fighting with Elon Musk in a mud bath. Who died? No one. But it's a 60-second reel that grabs attention. And I think, sadly, investors are the same, which is why they're going so nuts for this $0 to $100 million acceleration. And I guess the question, and again, I hate people that pretend to know more than they do, which is most of the investing world. But I don't know if there's structural elements to healthcare that mean you can't accelerate in the same way that software businesses can do. I'm sure certifications, FDA approvals, mean that actually that's much more challenging. But if I was thinking as a healthcare entrepreneur, it's how do I package this to show to a software investor the acceleration that can come? Also, so much is just vibes. Honestly, software investors are not very smart. That's why we just move from thing to thing very quickly. Defense. What the fuck do we know about defense? Seriously. Well, I have so many people have you seen this new drug?
The category of the moment.
I had a Harvard MBA the other talking to me about cost per kill. I'm like, cost? Well, I'm sorry, I'm used to like customer acquisition cost on Facebook. What? And it's like the cost it takes to kill someone. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Why is that? It's because it's the topic du jour. And, it aligns to, obviously, foreign affairs and where a lot of concerns go there. But a lot of investor is mimicry and vibe investing. That may not make you feel better. Sorry.
No, my goodness. I think so much in there to look at. I think it's interesting listening to some of the, the talks with the Sam Altmans, for example, who, right now they're going hard after all these B2B applications and trying to play in the, in the B2B SaaS essentially on top of their infrastructure. Yet in some of these talks, it's like, but the real opportunity is in healthcare. The real opportunity is accelerating scientific research and, and helping doctors. And we've seen a little
No,
bit of
it's an enterprise storage.
Yes, exactly. And I wonder if that just sounds really good in your opinion, or if it's, if there's something there where they're really going to make a play here.
I mean, I fucking hope they make a play there. Is the real opportunity there? Yes. Is the tangible, easy win there? No.
No, it takes longer. It's hard.
It takes a long time. Yeah. Stakeholders are incredibly difficult. Payer ecosystems are incredibly difficult. Access to data is incredibly difficult. It's inherently much more challenging. And, again, where incentives drive outcomes, if Sam Altman says, hey, we're going to align all of our resources to unlocking healthcare and human data and anything we want to do in healthcare, bluntly, everyone funding him will shit the bed. They're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on CapEx. Dude, I need to see revenue. Like, nice, sweet, you've been burning my money, but when's it coming back? CapEx needs to be repaid, and people don't have that long a patience span. Yeah. And so, honestly, what you're seeing is the movement for him to this desperate awareness that, shit, I need to make money. And absolutely, I think that will drive a lot of his product decision making. So yes, the real opportunities in healthcare. No, the focus will not be there because, bluntly, businesses spending a lot of money on AI tools is where Sam's business is.
I think it's consistent with kind of what we've seen in the past as healthcare insiders looking out at some of these, at the hyperscalers, the mega Apples and Googles and Amazons, always coming out with these big pushes to totally revolutionize healthcare, right? Amazon starting their joint venture with Berkshire Hathaway, Google with Verily, Apple with the watch, and all the features we're supposed to get. And while there have been some incremental wins and a lot of very public failures, I think we can agree largely healthcare still hasn't been completely disrupted and fixed by those three companies in the past 5 years. So it sounds like something that they want to invest in, that they talk about investing in, a bridge, a gap that we're going to bridge between big tech and healthcare or health tech. Yet I don't feel like we're much closer. And I wonder if that AI story, if that AI opportunity is the unlock to bridge that gap, or if, as you said, it sounds good, but it's certainly not the immediate focus for these mega AI companies.
The honest truth is, there are three things that are needed to drive efficient AI, which is compute, its algorithms, and its data in its simplest, most basic form, which is helpful. Compute and algorithms we can provide on our own as a technology ecosystem. And then data is the one that you are better placed than me to answer. I don't know about the portability of data in healthcare, the freedom of access of data in healthcare, but without that, we will not unlock the true potential of AI, and with that, we will. And so to what extent we see a closed wall, closed garden ecosystem for healthcare data, we're not going to see much improvement. If we are able to see that open up a lot more, then we're going to see a lot of improvement. Does it make me incredibly excited that we could have unbelievable MS breakthroughs with this opening up? Yeah. Do I worry that it's going to remain closed? Yeah.
You're citing a lot of the very well-known challenges in healthcare, and I think it's why you see such a community around it and a set of specialists around it because of the regulations, because of the limitations imposed by the EHR, which I know you and Rory and Jason in your weekly show, you guys got into Epic a little bit one week, which was super fun to hear kind of, that perspective, the SaaS perspective, unpacking that company.
The really interesting thing on startups is will the startup acquire distribution before the incumbent acquires innovation? And when you look at, say, an Epic versus an Abridge and all the other transcription providers, which there are many, many, the question is will Epic innovate on a transcription product faster than these other providers will innovate and acquire and distribute effectively? Honestly, when Epic announced their transcription products, I think everyone in the transcription industry had a very bad night's sleep. That is a oh shit moment for them. And I think they're really searching for a lot of meaning right now.
you would thinking about kind of the stepping out into the funds and some of the things you've talked about around VC incentives and how things are changing now. When you think about where we're going to be with venture in a few years, you cited some of the opportunities with a lot of dry capital and things sitting here. You mentioned on one of your shows that you are bearish on specialist funds. You mentioned defense earlier as an industry where maybe you're not so bullish on a fund focused fully on a vertical like defense. But there was one vertical you said you think might be logical to have a specialist fund around, and that was healthcare. And I'm curious if you can explain a little bit more why.
Because tourist investors in healthcare are going to lose their money. Listen, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me, dude. What do I know about healthcare investing? Like, seriously, listen, I'm happy to invest with friends of mine who are very smart healthcare investors, but it's very arrogant to swim outside of your swim lane. I think it's the most important thing in life is to know what game you're playing and to stick to your swim lane. Atlas Ventures, my word, they're very intelligent healthcare investors. To think that I am better than Atlas Ventures at predicting a healthcare innovation and finding those entrepreneurs, it's not naive, it's moronic. And there's a big difference. You can get lucky with naivety. With moronic, it's much harder. And so, yes, I think being deeply sector specific as a healthcare investor and vertical pays dividends. You are aware of breakthroughs. You're aware of what people want to buy. You're aware of what people want to sell. As a software investor, we don't know that. And so, yeah, that and cybersecurity are the two where I really believe in vertically specific funds.
There's a lot of companies that I think tend to go to investors outside of those swim lanes. And, you hear stories about kind of how challenging it can be to reconcile incentives and motivations of those funds on the board, or, you've got two totally different sets of expertise that want to govern the company differently. I'm curious now, kind of as you've been involved with more companies, been involved with more boards, maybe give some insight into what you've learned about being effective on boards, maybe some war stories. It seems like you're willing to share some of those with our audience, but anything that comes to mind around board governance and what you've learned doing that.
Yeah, never lose control of your board. It's very simple. Never lose control of your board. You always think you know people until things go wrong. And truth be told, it's easy to be a champion. It's very, very difficult when things go wrong. And people change. People change so much. And confidence in partnerships change a lot over time. What do I mean by that? A partner leads the round at a firm and they invest in your company. And 3-4 years later, their investments are not paying out. Their partners are going, are you any good? You've got a slew of investments that are not doing well. And the partnership puts pressure on that partner. That partner then takes that pressure that's being put on them and puts it on you, the entrepreneur. They change as a result of the pressure that their partnership puts on them. Very, very dangerous. Makes your life as an entrepreneur much harder. Very often partners leave firms. We're seeing this exodus of partners as they realize that bluntly their carry that was worth so much money is worth fuck all. And they're leaving firms. You're then orphaned within a fund. Incredibly difficult to get any subsequent funding. I'd always say work with the principal of the firm where possible. They literally can't leave unless they die. And so it's really important there. On a board membership, as I said, retain control of the board. Always, always, always call everyone before the board. 15 minutes. What do you want to achieve out of this board meeting? Align with them. If there's anything that you don't want to have discussed in the board, you have the chance to kill it there. Great, that's a really good point. Why didn't we discuss it now, me and you, and then we can take that off the table? It allows you to much more control the conversation that happens in the boardroom, and then it'll shape a lot of the topics that you put in the agenda. So the agenda, again, it may be different in healthcare, but in software we have these long decks, absolute crap. We just need a Google Doc with 3 of the most pressing strategic questions you face in the business, and then encourage people, share it as a Word document, not as a Google Doc. People are heavily influenced by the views of the people around them. So if you share it as a Google Doc, and I've sat on boards with people from Sequoia and Benchmark and Founders Fund and you name it, if I see that the head of Sequoia has very vociferously put something forward, I'm not exactly going to be like, well, he's a total moron. It completely shapes your opinion. And so you want to send it as a Word doc and ask them to comment in isolation. get them to send it to you a day or two beforehand, and then you can use that to inform your discussion. Really, really important. The best entrepreneurs absolutely guide and control the board in a way that suits them. And you can very easily tell top tier entrepreneurs through how they prep for that board. And then another really important thing that just shows A-level entrepreneur is like encourage feedback sessions between the board post-board meeting, where it's like, hey, it's really important for me that I'm the best CEO and head of the board that I can be. I'd love for you guys to spend some time together. I'll leave you together now. But have a discussion about how I can do this better, what we can do to be more productive as a board, and you can let me know.
Yeah. Thinking about the, kind of the things that the best entrepreneurs do when you're talking about board management, one of the things that you really went viral for pretty recently was talking about work culture of the best entrepreneurs. And
I hate it.
You got so much coverage.
You should see my DMs.
Well, it certainly went around our office. I'm
cool.
looking at my team that I sent this around with our CEO, and we were like, we've got to do this. Are we not doing this? Are we not hitting all those numbers? And I'd love you to kind of tell everyone what it was that went viral, your perspective on work culture, and what the best teams are doing that you believe, needs to be done as par for the course in this fast-moving world.
Listen, speed of execution is the most important thing in the success of company building today. And a large element that dictates that is the number of at-bats, the number of opportunities that you have. What dictates the number of opportunities you have is bluntly how hard you work and the volume and cadence with which you work. Now, I went relatively viral, good or bad, for essentially saying that in the US, all of the best companies are working 6 days a week, 9-9-6, which for anyone that doesn't know, that's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. My initial thought is, what were you doing on the Sunday, for goodness sake? But that wasn't the right answer. I then said, I cannot name one single company in the UK that is in the office on Saturday or does 9-9-6. I can't name one single company. That went very viral. Everyone in the comments was, fuck you, I'm not paid for the 6th day. And I just thought, God, this is why you short the UK. I mean, what a depressing way to look at life. I responded, my word, when you go to the treadmill and run for the first time, do you never go back because you didn't lose 2 stone? No, you have to put in the work when there is no obvious or expected return and continuously do so, knowing that it will come. And so I basically went viral for saying that we need to work much, much harder and be much more intense about the way we work.
Mm-hmm. To make it really direct, when you floated that a couple of times in different areas, I love reading the LinkedIn comments on that, by the way. That's got to be my favorite thread on planet Earth.
I do.
And it's incredible. And I read a bunch of stuff, and some of them it's I think there is a direct correlation between those that agree with you and maybe those that have some critique on that point, and age or presence of children, right, and family obligations. When I'm reading that,
going there.
That seems to be the direct correlation. The young, scrappy, right out of college, it's this or die kind of thing is like 9-9-6. How about 10-10-7, baby? Like let's go all in. And then there are the other
10-10-7 is not it. It's 007 in China.
007.
Yeah, in China is midnight 7 days a week. Yeah, it actually is. Yeah.
Is that really what you're seeing? That level of?
Yeah, sleeping.
Are we falling that far behind?
I'm sleeping in office with pillows on desks. Yeah. I'm not advocating for that.
No, sure. Understood.
Yeah, you absolutely are seeing that. And that in Chinese AI labs, you are absolutely seeing that.
Wow. How do you if we come back to that in a second. If we take the idea or we take the hypothesis that there is this correlation between, age or presence of children and those that want to work that hard and those that frankly aren't going to do those hours. We take that at face value for a minute. How do you think about balancing the need for people that are going to put in all that time, the executors, young generalists in a lot of cases, versus really seasoned specialists that bring expertise and experience? How do you think about building a team, with that being the case?
I honestly think in the early days, you want the 996. And everyone needs to be on board for the 996. It's very hard to have a culture early on, at first 20 to 25, where you're not all of one or all of the other. It's a nice idea to have a little bit of both. Honestly, it's very rare and very difficult to do. And so for me, it's a question of we have 996 until we get to a scale where we want to supplement it with incredible knowledge and experience. And there are amazing people who are often more mature with more years of experience, who we absolutely want as part of the business. And what you're looking for there is impact and leverage, where it's like, absolutely, when you have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, whatever it is, no, you can't do 996. It's ridiculous to assume that you can. But because of the experience, wisdom, and knowledge, the leverage that they have on their time is much, much more. I'm able now to do much more than I was 10 years ago because of what I've done. And so the impact has changed. And so you have to supplement it quite intelligently. And I'd say that's the hardest thing that I'm working with a lot of young founders on today, which is we've got this incredible fast-moving organization of 996. But no one great wants to join it because they're like, this is terrifying. You're a load of Red Bull drinking crackheads who just sit in an office all day flipping between TikTok and Discord, which is true. And so the question is, like, how do you blend that culture efficiently? And again, you have to be malleable to it and say that, hey, I respect impact and I respect the ability to move the needle. I think you can. And with that is an awareness that you maybe not be able to do the 996. And that's okay.
Wow. As we wind down on time here, and I want to be respectful of your time, as hard as it is to let you off the stage, I know there's a tube strike and I can't keep you here all day, but I have 2 final questions. One is, there's a company that you talked about on your podcast a few times, founded by a colleague of yours, a friend, Daniel Ek, the previous founder of Spotify, called Neko Health. And I think something that's really interesting when you talk about that company, again, as you self-acknowledge, right?
You know, I didn't invest.
Say again.
What a fuck up.
You didn't invest in that.
Oh, à la poubelle. Daniel called me and he was like, he's the founder of Spotify. He's a very old friend and investor in my funds. And he called me and he's like, you always said if there was ever another company after Spotify, you wanted to invest. I mean, yes, I'm here. I'm thinking kind of music, consumer, I'm fucking in. How do I wire the money? And he's like, great. It's in healthcare. And I'm like, By the way, the worst category of software entrepreneur is one that makes so much fucking money that they're like, I'm going to solve health. It's like, oh no. So he calls me, he's like, it's in healthcare. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. And I'm like, I'm still going to write the check at this point, right? It's Daniel, whatever. And he's like, yeah, great. So you're in? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And he's like, 50 million on a 500 million price. I'm like, no, fuck no. That's outrageous. The company's now worth, $2.5 billion and is kind of reshaping, I think, a lot of the kind of the consumer layer of how we assess a lot of the kind of front-facing metrics of what is human health.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah. It sounds like the company, we've heard the company is, really, really interesting. And I think what maybe would be helpful for the audience is just anything you can cite around the way that Daniel, as an outsider looking into healthcare, was thinking about the size and the scale of what they could build. We hear a lot
I love this company because anyone in healthcare shits on it, like, it's not really real healthcare. Fuck off. It's not the point. The point is they've really efficiently packaged a product that was a little bit more cumbersome before. Is it a breakthrough leap in, testing or, healthcare? Probably not. But it was a really cumbersome, arduous process before. He's packaged it in a really sexy, cool way where you get your bloods back in 45 minutes. It's coolly lit. It's a nice process. And actually, he understands the most important thing, which is, what does my customer want to buy? And, rightly or wrongly, it's been phenomenally successful because of that. So I think that's really important. That's why he's been so successful. Daniel understands better than anyone what his customers want to buy, almost better than they understand what they want to buy.
Yeah. Well, I have time just for one more question. And before I ask it, I want to get your permission. Can I use one of your famous questions from your own podcast on you? So after this here, this is kind of wrapping up our summit with healthcare entrepreneurs, investors, corporate acquirers. We talked about everything from what the best founders do to what AI is, how AI is reshaping everything. What didn't I ask you on this stage that I should have?
It's a very good question.
Thanks, you wrote it.
I got asked this question the other day, which I think is a really important one, which is, what would you do if you weren't scared? Everyone's scared of something. scared of losing someone, scared of losing their business, scared of I want something proper. I want something meaningful. Don't give me shallow stuff. And I really thought about that a lot. And I think the honest truth is, when I answer that myself, is if I wasn't scared, I'd probably move to Silicon Valley. I'm being serious. This is, again, this is why I'm probably the worst speaker to invite, because I'm just so open and honest. But this is the epicenter of technology and of AI right now. But the truth is, I'm scared of losing. In Europe, we are probably the dominant seed firm, and we will be the dominant Series A and B firm in the next 2 to 3 years. I can tangibly touch winning. Losing is a very scary thought. Going to the epicenter of Silicon Valley and competing in the Colosseum of technology against the greatest investors of our generation, that's quite scary. And you should probably always do the thing you're scared of most. One of my dearest mentors, who wonderfully always gives me $20 million a fund, makes him even dearer mentor. But amazing that happens. But he always said, you're never wrong to do the right thing. Challenges, the right thing is often the hardest thing. I always think of that.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Everyone, please, round of applause for Harry. Thank you so much.